Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Thanks for joining me today. Hit subscribe so you don't miss a single thing. I created a brand new Slimline Circle background for us. It's over in the shop. Check it out. I have a new SVG file for you. It'll be available over in my shop. And this is a Slimline plate. It's 3 1/4 by 8 1/2. It's circles background. Isn't it cute? And we're going to make a card. I'm going to do some ink blending on the background here, and then we'll add a sentiment and probably some little flowers or something. I have a couple things for you. Number one, the card is really super basic. We're just ink blending on a Slimline panel. I'm using Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock and Distress Oxide inks, and I'm just going to ink blend some pinks down this panel. Then we're going to glue our Slimline frame on there. Say that 5 times fast, and you'll get tongue-tied like I just did. And then we're going to stamp our sentiments and our little image inside of the circles. I also am sprinkling some perfect pearls across the background before I glue down my frame here. A couple things I wanted to share with you about cutting cardstock in particular when you are using a digital die cutting machine. Make sure your blade is super sharp. Once your blade starts to get even the least bit dull, you're going to get fuzzies, and that's a great big huge frustration, is those fuzzy corners. Ugh, don't like it at all. Number 2, I always cut my cardstock twice. I do 2 passes on my cardstock to make sure that it's cut all the way through. Does it take an extra minute or 2? Yes, it does, but it's definitely well worth it in the end. Your paper matters. If you are using a cheap cardstock, it's not going to cut as well. That's something I have learned over and over and over and over. Also, something else I have noticed over the years of cutting cardstock, for some reason, pretty much all black cardstock, I don't care what weight it is, I don't care if it's absolutely the best cardstock on the face of the planet, you need to pay a little bit extra attention to it. I always cut my black cardstock 3 times. I think it has to do with how the fibers bind and the color and that kind of thing in the paper. But on black cardstock, I usually will cut it 3 times to make sure that it cuts all the way through. And that's on all of my black cardstock, from Stampin' up to a big box store brand. It's just something about it that it doesn't want to break apart those fibers. So just keep that in mind when you're cutting. Know what you're cutting and understand the material. You will need to adjust your cut settings a little bit depending on the materials and that kind of thing that you're cutting. Paper is fibrous, so you're cutting those fibers away, and to get that good crisp cut that you want, you might need to go a little bit slower, and you might need to cut it more than 1 time. The other thing in Silhouette Studio is I have the overcut feature on, especially for images that have corners in them. And that allows the blade to actually pick up, turn, and go back down in the paper and then continue on its path. If you don't have the overcut feature on, it tries to turn in that corner, and in really sharp corners, that's where you get really bad corners. That's where you get really bad results and get really bad fuzzies in there. So just be aware of your material, be aware of your cut settings. And the other one is, how bad is your mat? Is your mat really cut up? If you have a mat, I know they're expensive and you want to get the most you possibly can out of your mats. I totally understand that. But if your mat is really cut up, you're not going to get pristine results like you want to either. Just because the blade on the back side of that paper isn't going to have as smooth a surface, and also your paper isn't going to be adhered exactly the same across the surface of the paper. So just keep those things in mind as you are paper crafting. You might be new to Silhouette and or Cricut, and just make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you're doing this. So I have this circle background cover plate as well as several others available over in the shop, and I hope you go and check it out. Enjoy the rest of this card, and I will see you soon. Thanks for joining me.